segment of Subtle Asian Voices. I'm today's host, Wendy. And today, as you can see, we have three beautiful ladies joining us today on the topic of female dating stories. And they will be sharing their memorable dating experiences with us. Some of them will be funny, while others are insightful and touching. Segment of So please stay for the entire segment. And we will also be answering audience questions live. So feel free to participate by entering your questions in the Q&A section. So we'll start off with the introductions first. Everyone, please say your name, age, location, and your favorite quote about love. And I will go first. My name is Wendy. I'm 25 years old from Orange County. And my favorite quote about love is from a song called What is Love by Joey Tan. And it reads, love to me is joy and pain in one, a gamble, a jumble, a great big mess. I think that's a good reflection on my personal experiences with love and probably a lot of other people too. So let us know if you agree with that in the chat below. And I will not popcorn Jasmine.
Hi, everybody. Jasmine from Florida. I am 32. Had to think about that for a minute. I don't know that this is my favorite quote, but this is one quote about love that resonates the most with me currently, is We Were Together, I Forget the Rest by Walt Whitman. And it resonates with me because where I'm at currently in my relationship and with love, I'm at a place where I'm at peace with all that I've been through and realizing that everything happens for a reason. And so with the person that I'm at today, it's sort of everything in the past has faded away. And that's something that's really resonated with me for the last few years. Aww. And now I will send over to Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda. I'm 30 years old. I'm from Oklahoma. And my quote is, follow your heart, but take your brain with you. Because I feel like a lot of the times we fall and we don't really think about, we're just in the feelings and the emotions. So I think, especially now that I'm older, I feel like you need to be smart about it.
That's so true. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Colette. And I don't really have a quote that really resonates with me. So I just Google something I heard someone say at a wedding, at a speech, and I thought it was really sweet. It said, may your love be modern enough to survive the times and old-fashioned enough to last forever. Yeah. And I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, I love that.
Wow, that is profound.
I have a little bit of an old soul, so I love that. I haven't heard it before, but
I know, yeah. That's a completely new one to me too. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for introducing yourselves. And all of you guys seem like you have wonderful, interesting stories to tell. And we will now move on to the interview section. So the first dating story we have lined up is about the first love. And when we talk about first love, everybody may have a different experience. Some people's may be very short and others may be very awkward. And for some people, it could be even heartbreaking. But regardless what everybody's experience is, I think we could all agree that our first was probably very innocent, pure, naive, idealistic, and we're probably very nervous and not knowing what to do or what to expect. So I think that is exactly what makes first love so memorable and special. It's always sweet to reminisce on it. And we're fortunate enough to have Linda, who will be sharing with us her very first special moments of love. Let's welcome Linda.
Hi. So my first love was when I was in high school. He was a friend of my brother's, so I would always see him. We actually lived in the same neighborhood, so he would always come over, and I'm like, oh yeah, like whatever. He's just like my brother's friend, and I never really looked at him like that. I was just like, oh yeah, like he's here for him, and then he would like do little things, and like there was one specific time where I needed a ride somewhere, and he was with his friend. He came home, got his car, picked me up, took me on my errand, and then I was like, all right, bye. He was like, that's it? I was like, what? And so it grew into love, and we're young, we don't really know what that is. Yeah. So it was I never really felt anything until I was like, oh, maybe this is what love is. And it was very innocent. I didn't know how to like this was my first relationship, so I was like, I don't know how to do this, like, you know. It was like really nice, and everybody was like, oh, you guys are so good together. But it was very innocent, and like looking back on it, I'm like, was it even love? But I mean, I still have very fond memories of this person, and you know, I see him from time to time. I'm like, oh hey, like how are you doing and stuff. But it was very like sure.
Yeah. So how old were you?
I was 16 when we officially started dating. Yeah.
Okay. And he was a brother's friend?
Yeah, he was 1 year older than me. So I was a junior, and I was a sophomore and he was a junior. And then we started officially dating, and then our school is kind of split up weird. So it's like 9th and 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th. So whenever he was a senior, I was a junior. And so I went to his prom, and it was like everybody knew about us, and I was like, oh, this is awkward that I'm like dating the senior or whatever.
I know, that's so sweet. Yeah. And I think like when you're a lower classman and you're dating somebody that's higher classman, there's always like
yeah,
like,
for sure. And
it
everybody
increases
was like,
your
oh.
popularity.
Exactly.
So I gotta ask this, like being Asian and you know, no dating till you marry, no boyfriend till you marry. Did you have to hide that from your parents?
I never hid it from my parents, but I hid it from my brother for sure. So he was like, they
Oh.
were actually really good friends. Like, I remember he like, because people would be like, oh, are you guys dating? And I was like, no, he's like my friend, right? So, because I like knew him already. And then he was like, oh, why do you keep saying that? And I was like, because we're friends. Like, this is weird. Like, why do people keep saying that we're dating? He was like, well, I like you. And I was like, oh, okay, like we could figure it out. And then we like started dating, and I was like, I'm not telling my brother, so I need you to tell my brother, because I'm not gonna be the one in trouble. Like, you like me first, so you need to be there. And so
the
my
protective,
brother, my
overprotective
brother was
older brother.
so mad.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really bad because we were dating for like 3 or 4 months, and then and then my brother was like, why didn't you tell me at first? And I was like, because I knew this was gonna happen. And it was like, it kind of blew up in our face.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common dynamic, like in movies, or like the brother's friend, you fall for them, and then the brother gets mad. It's typical Hollywood.
Which is kind of, I mean, I think it's kind of ironic because you know, if it's your friend, then you would know that person and how they are,
Right,
and you would want them to be, well, not actively want them, but you would be happy for that union. But I understand I have an older brother, so I understand that whole protective side too. It's like, well, I don't want you dating, period.
Oh, he probably knows him too much.
Oh,
the
yeah,
point
that's
where
true.
he knows that, like, no, you can't go for my little sister. I'm not gonna let that happen to her.
But he was a really good guy. Like, he treated me really well, and like he was, I think, like I learned a lot. Like, even looking back, like I know what my love language is now, and like looking back on then, I'm like, oh, I didn't like him because my love language is this, and he never like, you want to receive love in a certain way. I never received my love language from him. He like showed me in a different way. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting now that I'm older and I could like really understand myself, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but like after we dated, my brother and him were not friends anymore. They like did not talk. They never hung out. Like they're no longer friends. It was really sad. I felt kind of bad, like that I like did that.
Well, I would, yeah, you didn't do that. It's just circumstance, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Linda. That's definitely very sweet.
I wish I didn't know about love language until after college. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. So I'm like thinking in my head, wondering how or if that would have changed our understanding of what that first love or that interaction is, how we perceive love, how we give love. Had I, or at least for me, had I known it, you know, as early as high school.
Yeah. So I guess you were lucky that you were exposed to somebody who were able to show you the different types of love, and in a healthy way, it sounds like too. So
kind of like my love language is quality time, and he always like bought me gifts, and I feel like that's my lowest love language. So it never like, he bought me gifts and I was like, okay, whatever, and it's like a physical item, so it never really meant much to me. Whereas like sentimental items, like getting me a drink, or like, I don't know, making sure that I have, you know, we were in high school, so he would like always buy me like lunch, and I thought that was nice. But it was like if you bought me a DVD player, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna set this down. It didn't really mean much to me, you know.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. It's about the thought and not the actual monetary value of the item. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you so much for sharing, Linda. We really appreciate that story. And the next one is an interesting one. It'll be about the baddie. And I included this one because, girls, let's just be honest. I think most of us probably have gone through a phase where we had an obsession with bad boys. I admit I personally have, and I know friends that have. And, it's the type you would never bring home to mom, and definitely not husband material. And I think when we're young girls, it's probably very typical to fantasize about the tough, mysterious boy on a bike, motorcycle with a race car and a drink in his hand. It sounds very unappealing right now to talk about it, but I think that was a thrilling and exhilarating experience for a lot of us, especially in our teenage years. So we will be inviting Colette to share her juicy dating story with the baddie.
Okay, so I met him when I was in college. We dated my sophomore year, and he did have a motorcycle and two cars.
Ricer?
Yes.
Oh,
we had like a lot of my. I'm sorry, it went out for a second.
Wendy?
Did it freeze? Hello?
Even the koi fish.
You froze for a second. I couldn't hear what you.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, but I was saying like how the typical like Asian tattoo and like.
Oh yeah, he had a. Yeah, he had a tattoo too, and so he had two cars. One was actually registered, the other one was not. He apparently like would steal license plates and put it on the other car.
Yeah.
So I think it was quite an experience. Like he was very jealous, wouldn't let me do a lot of things or talk to people. And the craziest thing that's ever happened to whenever we were together was we went to Atlanta for a car show, and he took the car with a stolen plate. And he did a legal U-turn while we were there, and we got pulled over, and they took him to jail.
Oh no!
My God.
Yeah, and so it was on a Sunday, and I had a history exam the next day back in Charlotte. So I had to hitch a ride with a random friend. Luckily, that was there to get back to Charlotte.
For a legal U-turn?
Yeah, anything from a U-turn.
Well, it wasn't the U-turn that got him. It was the stolen plate, and also he had a suspended license. I guess I forgot that part.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, it was quite a nightmare.
Okay. So like what was his appearance like?
He had like those like blonde.
The frosty tips.
Yeah.
It's not really a 90s or like the early 2000s thing.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Did you feel like you got that out of your system?
Oh yeah, that was way too stressful. And I don't have time or patience for that anymore.
How long did that last?
A year and a half.
Year and a half. I'm surprised you were able to hold off for that long.
So what was I wonder if you can share what attracted you to him?
Well, the guy I dated before him was like, it was very innocent. It was like a high school boyfriend, and so yeah, just like a change. Like he was just, exciting.
180,
yeah. But I think it's out of my system.
But it sounds like it was kind of toxic too. Like he was very jealous and controlling. Like, was there also like temper issues and arguments and?
Oh yeah, lots of arguments.
Was it borderline abusive as well?
Yeah, verbally. Yeah, like I wasn't allowed to call him anything but like a nickname. If I said his name, he would get mad.
I see. Yeah, like that kind of goes hand in hand with these bad boys that we were into. Like they definitely have some of the darker traits, but I think like not knowing any better, we kind of like let that slide. And didn't know that it was something unacceptable. And I personally have experienced that with that too. So um I I mean, how did that end? Like I'm surprised it was able to go on for a year and a half.
I know. I tried ending it once, but he he had his mom call me and tell me not to do it.
Oh, that sounds manipulative.
Yeah, and yeah. I was like, okay, I'll give it another chance. And then I found out later that he was either cheating or talking to another girl.
Mm,
So I went on this whole like investigative thing
mm,
into his MySpace and email. Well, shame,
okay.
but it was like I was looking for a way out, and it was like
Uh-huh.
a blessing in disguise. I was like, yes.
Girl, you don't need an excuse
Evidence.
to leave anyone.
Yes. And even after I confronted him, he said, he got really mad at me. He's like, I'm gonna take everything you ever given to me and burn it in front of your house.
Oh
Mm,
my gosh.
Wow.
wow.
That's super
Sounds
toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah,
And I'm
for
glad
sure.
you got that out of your system while you're young.
Yeah.
I feel like those toxic traits when we're young and we, misinterpret it for love, it's
Yeah,
like you take the anger and misinterpret it for passion. It's like the more
exactly.
angry you are, the more you
Mm,
must love me.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and so I can see why, that transcended into like a whole year and a half, the whole back and forth, because I've been in there too. And
Mhm.
where I've gotten out of that phase, but in looking back, I'm like, yeah, you can be angry, but that doesn't mean that you love me more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely. I think one of the I think one of the signs of unhealthy relationship is intensity, and it definitely feels like a roller coaster ride. And the highs are very like ecstatic, and then the lows are very very toxic and depressive. And I think
Yeah.
your experience is definitely reflective of what a lot of teenage girls have probably gone through. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. And we have one audience question. In what way, if any, do you think the attraction to bad boys relate to family or origin? So, like, do you think that, and this is open to Linda and Jasmine as well, do you think there's any correlation as to where somebody come from and their family upbringing?
I would think so.
I think it can. Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you live in a really strict family and
Yeah,
like you're always your parents are on you and you're like, I just want to rebel and like find me a little baddie and like do wild stuff with and then come home and study.
I agree with that. Totally. I feel that. And like
Mm.
Colette, and just you look like the good girl, like the innocent girl.
Oh yeah, I was very naive and timid and shy, so
Yeah.
it was like a complete opposite.
Yeah, and there was probably like huge, more than a spark. It was probably fireworks when like both
Hmm.
extreme opposites attract each other and they come together. Um,
So,
yeah, I definitely agree. I think like the more the stricter and I think the more pressure family you come from, and there's the urge to be free to and an idealization for the independence and the freedom that they embody. I totally agree
mhm.
with that. All right. So next we will
um,
talk about
Someone has a
um
question, I think.
okay,
Sorry.
yeah, let me say that. Is there a good mix of bad boy vibe and nice guy, or is there no such thing? So I guess what this person is asking, like, have any of you guys ever met somebody who has some of that mysterious tough guy trait while not exhibiting any of the toxic and unhealthy behavior?
I think so. So with this guy I dated, he used to fight all the time in high school. Like he would get in fights. Like he went to 4 different high schools because he kept getting in fights. But whenever he was with me, he was like very sweet, very kind.
Uh-huh.
And one time he like raised his voice at me, and I was like, I kind of shuddered, and he was like, I got you. I would never fight in front of you. And it was like really like eye opening to see like you can have two different like you can control your emotions now and like you're not you're learning to get rid of your toxic traits and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like I think for girls, like I think sometimes like we want the guys to take charge and like a dominant one, but not to the point where it's controlling. I think there's definitely an appeal to like guys that are masculine and sometimes take charge.
Yeah.
All right. So next we have the much older guy. I included this one because I think it's more typical for girls to date older guys. Because we tend to mature at a faster rate than guys mentally and also physically. And some girls prefer dating older guys because they feel that they could be better taken care of. Or some girls, like me, have daddy issues and are more inclined to date much older guys because of the lack of a paternal fatherly figure from childhood. And I think like being forced to become independent and mature at such a young age, we unconsciously become attracted to men who make us feel secure and protected and spoiled like a little girl because we never experienced that. So we'll have Linda share her experience with a much older guy and a much younger guy as well. So she's dated both ends of the spectrum, and she'll be sharing with us the differences she noticed. And I think it would be very interesting. Take it away.
So my older guy, he was 7 years older, and that was like the oldest guy I've dated at that point. I was also very young. I was like 19, 20. I was about to turn 20 or something like that. And we met online. He was from the UK. So it was like very attractive, like his voice, and like
the
it was
accent.
funny like in the first couple times I couldn't understand him. Like he was talking, but I was like, I don't know what you're saying.
Like, I don't care what you're saying, just keep talking.
Yeah. But he was like very attentive. He was very much like he was 27 at this time. So he was like
and
ready
you were
to
19.
settle down. Yeah. It was like totally opposite. And he was like, I want you to move over here. Like, I want you to live with me. Like, I'll take care of you if you come over here. And I was like, it seemed really appealing, but I was 19. So I was like, oh, heck no. Like, I'm not leaving the US and like leaving my family. So it was very, like, we were just in different parts of our lives. But he was never, like, he never gave me money. He never, like, spoiled me. I was really attracted to how secure he was. Like, I got you. Like, whatever you need, I got you. It's like how I felt. So, and then the much younger guy, it was weird because I never felt like the older guy. When we talked, I didn't feel like he was older. I felt like we were like not the same age, but we were. I didn't feel like he was like 40. You know, he was like the age difference didn't matter to me. But a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you shouldn't date somebody that old. And I'm like, I'm 19. I'm legal. So that was interesting that people would like not judge me, but like kind of look at me sideways, you know?
That's only 7 years.
That's what I said. I was like, it would be different if I was like 16 or like younger. I'm like,
I know.
I mean, it makes
yeah. I think like it wasn't like you were 20 dating a 80-year-old, like which all types of things coming out in 2020, right? So I am curious to see, like, did you feel like you were a lot better taken care of, and that because he was older and that he had more experience with relationships, did you feel like he kind of taught you about how to love and what dating, or I mean like mature dating looks like?
I don't feel like it. I also, maybe I didn't take it that seriously because I was 19. Like, I was like, oh, like I just got out of a 2-year relationship. I was like ready to like see the world. I just moved like a year before, so I was like kind of getting used to where I was living. And then we also met like on Facebook, so it was like I wasn't really looking for anything, but it just kind of happened. So I was like, okay, we'll see. We met on Facebook, and then he flew to see me. He like came to America.
Wow.
Because he's from the UK. So I was like, okay. He stayed for like 2 weeks, and I was like, it was really crazy, you know, like being with this person. And like, you know, it's different when you're online and long distance.
Yeah.
So I don't think he taught me like how to love, but I think he really showed me like what I like. he really wanted a kid, and I was like, I'm not ready for
Oh.
that at 19. I was like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids right now. Like,
27 is early for a guy too.
yeah, I was like, don't you want to, like, you know, have fun for a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like ready. Like, we broke up and he had a kid like 6 months later. So
Oh
he
my
was like
gosh.
ready. Like, he was
Aren't you
ready.
glad that wasn't you?
Yeah, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You weren't
Yeah.
kidding. He was ready. Wow.
Yeah, he was ready. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that kind of showed me like, oh, I'm not really ready to have, like, you know, a family.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
hold off a little bit.
Mm-hmm,
But I think that's what I learned out of that relationship for sure.
yeah. Now, what about the much younger guy? You said
So
he's 7 years older, right?
yeah, the
Oh, I'm
older
sorry,
one was 7 years older.
7 years younger. Yeah.
He was 3 years younger, but I met him when I was 22. So he was 19 when I met him.
I feel like that could feel like 7-year difference.
It felt so
true.
it was so funny. I met him and I was like, oh, how old are you? He was like 19. I was like, oh, baby, you can't even buy me a beer. Like, we can't have a conversation.
Infant.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, no. But he looks really old. Like, even back then when he was 19, he looked like he was like 25. So I was like, oh, you look old.
Okay. So
but he was
being with him, like, would it make you feel like conscious about your age because you guys look like peers?
Yeah, we did.
Um,
It's funny because, like, some people, every time I show people our pictures, they're like, "Oh, how old is he? Like, how much older is he?" And I'm like, "He's younger than me." And they're like, "Oh my God, that's crazy." But it was really funny because, like, I would never think about being with a younger guy, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, fine. Like, let's give this guy a chance." But
Mhm.
it was very interesting dating a younger guy.
Mm. So were there like arguments over his immaturity level, and because guys just mature mentally slower than girls, like, were there like, did it cause a lot of conflicts because you guys weren't at the same place mentally?
Well, so I dated him when he was 25. So I met him at 19, and then, like, we were friendly, like, we would see each other, but we never like dated. And then we met up again when he was 25 and I was 28. And then at that point he was already mature enough for me to, like, okay, let me actually give you a real chance.
Wow.
So it never, like, I never saw the immature part of him. Like, maybe he's very playful. So maybe that was the only thing that, like, we would like wrestle, which is weird. I've never like wrestled with a guy.
Can you do?
Like, he was really fun that way. Like, he's very youthful. Like, we would always go swimming, and, like, you know, when you like go swimming, you're like on a diving board, he'll like do a cannonball, and I'm like, I would never do that because I'm not a good swimmer. But, you know, he was very fun, and the idea that,
A
like,
young
brought
heart.
out the youth, yeah, the
Yeah.
youthfulness in me.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear because I mean, some guys could be in their 40s and still be very immature, but it sounds like this guy was definitely on the same page with you mentally.
Mhm.
So, like, to sum it up, in your experience, you didn't really feel like dating a much older guy was much different than dating a younger guy. It totally depends on the person itself.
Right.
Is that
I think the stigma of, like, dating an older guy or dating a younger guy was never really, like, I don't really hold anybody, like, you can't help how old you are. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you can help how immature you are, but, like,
Mhm,
you really can't be like, oh, well, you're too young for me. But, like, because
mhm.
being young doesn't always mean you're immature. Being old doesn't always mean you're mature too. So it goes both ways.
Great, that's good to hear. Because I think I'm definitely one of those people who like have judgments against like guys that are younger than me. But yeah, I totally understand. Like, he could be young, but try his best
Right.
to get to where you are. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. And next dating story will be the friend. Now, I'm sure most people can relate to this because love is friendship set on fire. And a lot of relationships do start off as friendships. And I think dating a friend, it does get more complicated when the relationship doesn't work out and two people have the same friends, they're from the same social circle. So let's hear from Colette as to how she navigated through that kind of sticky situation.
Uh, okay, so it was this one guy. I actually met her on Tinder, but I was bored swiping and I had gone out of a relationship not too long ago. And I didn't really plan on meeting him, but I figured, why not? I didn't have anything to do that weekend. And so we met, and the chemistry was there. I was attracted to him, but I didn't want to get like date at that moment. So we were friends for about 6 months until we actually started going on dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I found out that we weren't really that compatible. So broke it off, but we're still friends now. Not really that interesting, but
So did you guys have mutual friends?
no, we didn't. So
Okay,
it was
yeah,
like
that's
kind of
great.
two separate lives. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So
So maybe that makes it easier. Oh,
are you
sorry.
guys able to remain friends afterwards? Like still be cordial and friendly with each other?
Yeah, we still hang out sometimes now.
That's good. That's good. And do you feel like just having been in a relationship and been intimate with that person, does that make your friendship awkward afterwards?
No, I don't think so. I felt like we never connected on a even deeper level. So
I see.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we were like deeply in love and then it didn't work out, then maybe it might have been weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
So,
you guys believe in the friend zone?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
believe
have.
in a friend zone.
What?
Oh,
I
What do
think
you mean?
No.
You've never sent
Because
them to the friend zone?
no. I don't mean like honestly, like if somebody was to tell me, I had a friend who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in you," and like I was like, I'm really flattered, but I don't see you that way." And he was like, "That's cool. I don't want to be your friend because I have romantic feelings for you." So like he cut off the friendship, and I feel like that made me more like admire him because I'm not gonna sit around pretending to be your friend just on the off chance that you're gonna like give me a chance later. Because if you're gonna be my friend, then be my real friend. Because if you feel like you're in the friend zone, I feel like you're only being my friend for the chance to be with me
to be
later
more,
romantically.
Really? But what if they just like really like you as a person and they don't want to like cut off interactions with you?
Then they need to figure out their romantic feelings and then be my friend. Because at that point, then you're not really friend zone, you're actually my friend.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
Because to me, friend zone is like you're only waiting around, like hoping one day, you know, like, oh, like I'm gonna be such a good friend that they're gonna fall for me anyways, or like I'm such a good friend, I'll always be there whenever these guys fuck them over. Sorry, screw them over,
Yeah.
and then I'll be there to pick up the pieces, and then they'll fall for me then. And it's like, but why would you sell yourself short? You know, like why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you right now? For me.
Very interesting. Because I think girls probably have a lot of experience with this when like friends develop feelings and then they politely turn them down and I think when guys continue making subtle suggestions, it does make girls uncomfortable. But it seems like Linda is the type to just
be blunt with it and
like it's it or it isn't. Like there's no gray area, and there shouldn't be any uncomfortableness around that.
Right.
It's just
Especially if
all or
you're my
nothing.
friend. Yeah, like if you're really my friend and I feel uncomfortable, like if I turned you down or if there was some romantic feelings at the beginning and it didn't work out or like we didn't pursue it, and then you'll like make suggestions later, I'm gonna be like, hey, listen, that's not okay. Like, don't do that to me. We're friends. Like, you're making sexual suggestions or you're inappropriate right now, and I need you to like cut it, or we're not gonna be friends anymore. Because I'm a very like not a blunt person, but like I've never turned down a guy rudely. Like if a guy asks me for my number and I don't want to give it to them, I'm like, you know, I'm okay. Like I don't want to give you my number. You should respect me. You're not entitled to me. Because I feel like when you're friend zoning somebody, they feel entitled to be next after you break up with somebody. A lot of the times. Entitlement is like a very big thing for me. It's like I'm not entitled to you. You're not entitled to me. If we both mutually agree to like be with each other, that's fine. But you know, like just because you've been friends with me for 5 years doesn't mean you got dibs.
Doesn't mean you've been standing in line for 5 years.
Right.
Grab a ticket.
Well, I like that. I really like your personality and your attitude. It's just
Yeah.
straightforwardness. I think a lot of girls struggle with like how to talk to them, how to like make sure that their feelings are not hurt, being like sugarcoating things and not being very direct. I think a lot of
Yeah.
guys would appreciate your straightforwardness.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've also been a friend, and I've like, oh, you have like romantic feelings about you now. And I've told them like, yeah, like I really like you. Like I want to see where this goes. And they're like, oh, I'm really not interested. Cool. Like, let me take care of my feelings, and then I'll come back to you in a couple of weeks once I'm not like interested anymore, and like we'll figure it out then. But I'm not gonna be like texting and calling him every day when I like him. Like that's, I don't know. I don't want to waste my time on somebody who doesn't want to be with me.
I like that. She's got the cool girl attitude. Okay, so this question is for Colette. Would you prefer to know a person on a deeper level first before dating, or base it on a more physical attraction to start dating first? So I think what he's saying is that would you rather take time to get to know a person first before beginning dating, or are you the type to like just go for it and see how it feels?
Ideally, I would like to get to know someone on a deeper level, but usually doesn't happen that way.
That's true.
And I feel
That's
like
true.
dating and like being official is such a like a fine like a gray area from dating to like being in a relationship. So I don't know.
Do
Yeah.
you bring up the topic of like, do we define the relationship when that is like when you guys are in the gray zone?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's really important to like let each other know when it's to that point where you're only seeing each other exclusively.
Yes, yeah, that's a very healthy approach. So, thank you, ladies, for sharing. And the next dating story is about the one that got away. Um, Not everybody may have somebody who they feel like was a loss, and probably not everybody believes in the concept of the one that got away. Um, because some people may approach breakups with a positive attitude and feel that all of them may be good riddance. But I think for some girls who were lucky enough to meet one guy that really stood out from the rest and experienced a real unforgettable bond with them, it's hard for us to forget. And we may always have a spot in our heart for those people. And it's definitely a somber and tender subject with an element of grief. But I think this is what makes love and life so beautiful, is that not every love story has a happy ending, and sometimes the dearest one is not who we end up with at the end. So this one we'll give to Jasmine, who's been waiting the whole time. Take it away.
Yeah. So for about a decade, I'll be very honest, I struggled with this concept because I really deeply felt it. So the one that got away from me was my first love in high school. You know, first love for each of us, and we were very alike in a lot of the same ways, but also had, in of course, this is in hindsight, had difficulties communicating because again, we were each other's like first real love. Our families were really close. I was close to his family. We were raised very much the same. I'm Vietnamese, he's Vietnamese. So having that extra element of being close to your partner's family also made it very hard. What ended up happening was that I went away for college. We tried to make it work and didn't. So due to circumstances, we just couldn't stay together. You know, being that we already had problems communicating in the first place, being away, and then having to then also figure out how to handle how to have a long distance relationship for the first time. And then with me being away at college, having new experience that didn't include him. You know, there's that, for me, there was that guilt that, because he stayed, you know, he went to college back at home. So he stayed with his family. His immediate environment didn't change. So whenever he came up, hung out with my friends, it was always a disconnect. You know, we never went back into sync. We broke up a handful of times. And I think for me, the reason And, you know, we've had conversations about this, me and him before, and he felt that I was the one that got away too. So it was mutual. Every time we would move on to somebody else and that didn't work out, we would always fall back to each other, always hoping that this next time it would work, but it never would. And it just became that roller coaster where for a while we were just essentially each other's anchors, where we knew that anything bad that happened in life, and in a way it wasn't a toxic thing in a sense, because you knew there's that one person that you can rely on, that if you needed something outside of family, outside of close friends, like almost like a last resort even, that you can depend on them. So that's what we were for each other. And then we went through different phases of each other, of life together, separately, different stages of maturity. And yeah, so definitely an experience. And I think I don't want to say most people, but certainly a handful of folks out there, I would say, have that from their first love, because again, you're figuring out how to navigate through that for the first time. And for us, looking back, we were so young, right? But if you remember back to your first love, and whenever that might be, you have these visions of like starting a family, being together forever, I'll love you forever, all this stuff. And so that's the first time that you're really painting that picture, and then to not see it happen, that's
Wow.
yeah.
That is really deep and beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm curious as to why you would categorize him as the one that got away. Was it because that you feel like if the circumstances allow, and if serendipity or life allows that to happen, you guys could continue? Is that why?
We revisited the topic later as adults, actually, like a couple years ago, when we linked up, not reconnected that way, but just linked up to share a beer. But we talked about how we always felt like we had that connection, but timing is a heck of a thing, and it was that, we both felt that in a different lifetime, in a different space, it would have worked out, but just too many things didn't fall in line, didn't allow for it to happen. But what we did share was a beautiful thing. Like I said, and this sounds silly in hindsight, but when he graduated from high school, he was a year older than me. And then when I graduated from high school and getting ready to go to college, he had asked me to marry him.
Oh gosh.
And
that's even earlier than Linda.
Yeah. So, like I said, as a 32-year-old looking back and thinking of a high school, high schoolers, even at age 18, where you're graduated and you're engaged, we kept it to ourselves because we were very aware of the fact that everyone around us would be like, oh, you're too young, this and that, but it was very real for us. So I think, again, when you get to the point where you envision and talk about a future with someone, and then really seeing it far out there and then not reaching that, I think for us, that's why we felt like it was the one that got away. And we tried so many times, tried. And each one of those times, it still didn't work out. Yeah. So, and again, it's just learning how to navigate through it, navigating through those feelings, many of those feelings being it for the first time. And you're going through so many different stages of just natural growth as a human being, right? And just figuring all that out. It just, yeah.
And I think like the one that got away definitely deserves more attention than it has, because I think it, like you said, it's a support system outside of your close family and friends, and and because you guys have been through all the transformative years together, you guys have this bond, and you guys are essentially best friends to each other, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And like it's almost like it almost like elevated to a level of familial love where like you may not necessarily have romantic interest in each other anymore, but you're still willing to be there to support each other and see that person do well in life.
Yeah, and
hope
it's
for the best for them.
And what you said there about being best friends, there were so many times, if I were to just recollect that, where we would go through the separation, and the hard part was, verbatim, one or both of us would say, well, how do we let go of our best friend? Like, how can I let go? How can I let you go? You're my best friend. You've been through so many transformative phases of our lives together. And especially for us, like I said, we were close to each other's families, and we're very family oriented. So it wasn't just losing each other, it was losing each other's families, so there was a whole nother level of like connection and loss.
Yeah.
So that was difficult, but like I said, when we linked up a couple years ago, we realized that it's not meant to be. We weren't meant to be, and we came to peace with that. During that time, that was very difficult, just navigating both together and independently how that affected us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a lesson on life. That like not all love stories have that romantic ending, and we may love more than one person in life, and it's not an exclusive thing, and love takes many forms, and it could be elevated to a level of familial love as well. And I think that's beautiful. And also you will be sharing true love. I think it's great how your boyfriend is like feels totally comfortable about you sharing back to back.
I mean, here's the honest thing. The reason why I feel comfortable sharing about the one that got away is because I got to a point in my life where I could close that chapter, because for the longest time I couldn't. Like I said, for about a decade, give or take, it was that thing in the back of your head where, I was in other relationships, and I never consciously or actively was like lingering and hanging on to it. But it was that thing in the back of your head where it's like, you never really got full closure, but it's there, and you can't, it just didn't go away. But like I said, the reason why I feel okay talking about it is because I've been able to close that chapter, and why I shared the quote at the beginning, where we're together and I forget the rest, is because when I found my true love, I was able to understand why every relationship that I've been through didn't work out. Because I think when something ends, whether it's a good relationship or a bad relationship, you, as a human being, you have some regrets. I mean, I would, not that regret's a bad thing, but you have regrets, or you have the what ifs, should haves, and doubts of what could I have done differently to make it work. Because when something doesn't work like that, you take that to heart. But meeting my true love, he was the definitive piece that I guess I was missing to help me realize that everything happens for a reason. As cliche, like he literally, it just sounds so silly, but all the cliches that you hear in movies and everything like that is suddenly it's like, oh, okay.
It makes sense.
That's why whoever authored that, because there is truth behind it. And it's not just a silly cliche, but it suddenly put me at peace, made me, again, like I said, truly understand why everything in the past didn't happen because it led me to that point. It led me to be prepared to now be in this relationship that I can, not just envision, but continue to fulfill, well into the future. So that's like a segment into it.
Wow. I think that's so encouraging to hear for those of us who feel like we'll never be able to find true love and we'll be forever alone. Like, here's one person sitting here who found her true love.
Yeah, and I remember there was a, fairly early on, I'm the type of person, I guess I should preface this, I'm the type of person where, even though I'm aware of how much I give, every time I go into something, I still give my all, right? Like, you put everything on the line, and so even early on, and I am a hopeless romantic, even though for so many years, like, I tried to be in denial of that because I don't know. But early on, in my relationship with my now true love, I had a moment where we were together, and I shared with him. I was like, I don't know why I feel the need to share this with you, but I just feel like I do. And I shared with him about the one that got away. I shared, I said, for so long, I've had this person who I felt like he was the one that got away, and then I'm never really going to find true happiness, and that there's always going to be this thing that lingers in the back of my mind and my back of my history and all of that. But you've changed that. Like, I found peace now. And I'm so grateful for that transformative part in my life and that definitive moment. And I know it's because I finally found someone who matched, like, what I give, my level of love, and it doesn't make me feel like I'm giving too much. It doesn't make me feel like I have to pull myself back because I'm giving too much, if that makes sense. Because I think in some relationships in my past, I feel like, oh, am I giving too much? Do I have to balance myself out with them? Whereas right now, I truly can just be myself, whether that's being weird or, whatever.
Yeah. I think, like, it's just so motivating to hear that, because, like, I think for some of us who've had tried and failed so many times, once we get close to the big 30, we're kind of like, should we just settle and just find the next
I mean, no,
good enough guy?
if there is like a shining, a silver lining there, because I'll be honest on this too. Like, I didn't think that I would ever get to where I am today. And I think it's just letting life be, and not like actively seeking it, and just living your life and knowing your value and not settling. Because I was, in hindsight, like I said, I was ready to settle, because whether it's like the biological pressure or the peer pressure or whatever else it is, like, okay, well, you've been with somebody for so long, and you've put in so much time, and you put in all this stuff, and you just settle for a level of happiness, which isn't, I don't want to say that that's bad either, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, what advice would you give to somebody looking for true love, and you're like not actively seeking it? Isn't that counterintuitive? But now I understand what you're saying is to not make that a priority. Make the priority about yourself, about being the best you can be in your own life, and that energy will attract the right person.
Yeah. So, I was 29 and I found myself unexpectedly single, and I share this in, with our hosts before, but I was like, how do people meet at this age? I'm like, I'm not in school. I'm not going to date my coworkers. And I'm like, you hear all this stuff about Tinder and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds so stressful. And I'm an introvert. So, for me to like even think about going to a bar to like, hey, what's your name? Like that's stressful to me. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to die alone.
I really resonated with you when you said, like, you just do your own thing and it happens. Because every time I've been on a dating app, like, nothing ever goes. Like, nothing ever, it's never lasted,
Yeah.
But like all my real relationships have been like, I randomly met them. Like we just became friendly. I don't know. It just like when you're looking for it, it doesn't ever find you. But when you're like least expecting it, you're like, I think I found the one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like we, you know, I was so oblivious, and I honestly was not looking for anything, that when he did actually DM'd me on Instagram, I thought it was, a group message with me and our mutual friends. And so I responded. I responded very just,
Nonchalant.
yeah, just nonchalantly, like it was something that I just responded and then forgot about. And then later when I think as females, we have a tendency or an instinctual feeling like, is he hitting on me or not, or whatever. So I asked my mutual friend, I was like, what's the situation here? Because I don't want to get into anything. And he's like, no, he's just a nice guy. He's not trying anything. And so later I found that he was actually being his wingman. But for me, when he kind of confirmed so my partner's name is Nico. When he confirmed that Nico wasn't actually looking for something, even though he was, then I let my guard down. And I was just casually talking. I wasn't trying. So my advice would be, like I said, don't go looking for it. Live your life. Definitely learn to love who you are. I mean, I know that sounds very cliche, but when you love yourself, you know your value, right? Because we have a tendency of accepting the love that we think we deserve. So if you don't know or own like your own narrative, you don't own who you are, you don't own the love that you think you deserve, you're going to naturally subconsciously settle. And you're going to make excuses, or you're going to come up with different narratives in your head about why it's okay to accept certain things versus not other things. And I think there is a right person for everybody. Yeah, and I think it's society and its influences can be so loud, especially with social media. Just like wanting to have like that perfect relationship, it gets to be really, really hard. So yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I have a great success story over here, because
Yeah.
I think it does happen, and but it's rare and it takes effort, and those who have found it are truly the lucky ones, because that feeling is just euphoric and it's the best thing in the world. And I think that's worth trying no matter what. Okay. So we're going to end on a very positive note. And thanks, Jasmine, for concluding on a very profound and insightful story. And it's definitely a warm reminder to all of us to keep trying. And we're going to use the remainder of the time to take a couple of audience questions. So this one goes back to the question about the old guy. So I'm going to give this to Colette because we haven't heard from her for a little bit. So audience says, if I ever have a daughter and I set strong boundaries for my daughter, how can I prevent her from dating a bad boy?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not sure you can set boundaries. I think they'll make them want to do it even more.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what Linda was talking about. Like if you grew up in a very strict household like that actually makes you more rebellious.
Yeah. I think it's good to like set reasonable boundaries and just pay attention to the people that she hangs out with. Be open-minded.
I would say, and I say this from a point of view because I have a baby nephew, and as I get older, I'm reflecting on how I was raised and thinking about how I want to raise my kids. And communication is everything. I think growing up Asian, we were hit with so many strict boundaries where we hit puberty and adolescence. We're like, we're just going to rebel for the sake of rebelling because we're just done with it. But I think just having an open line of communication with your children, letting them make mistakes, and and then letting them know that they're okay coming to you, and they won't be in trouble, or, you know, and that you are their safe zone. I think that allows for them to communicate whether they do end up dating intentionally or unintentionally a bad person. They can still come to you, as opposed to digging themselves into like a deeper situation.
Yeah.
Right. I think our upbringing, we feared, at least for me, I feared so much about getting in trouble that I hid things from my parents, which made it even worse. So I would just say have an open line of communication where your child knows that you support them and that they feel safe coming to you, as opposed to fearing coming to you, is probably the best approach.
I think for me, I look for somebody who reminds me of my father. So like I want to find somebody who loves me like my father loves my mother. So if like you're really strict on your kids, but you just show love to your child and the love to your wife or the mother of your child, like they're gonna see that. They're like, oh, I want to be treated like that. I want a guy who's gonna treat me like how my mom was treated or my father treated people. I think that really resonated with me that way.
Great. That's great. Like having a positive role model and a successful model of what a healthy relationship looks like. I think that leaves a lasting impact on the type of guys you prefer and the type of marriages you get into. Yeah. All right. So that is everything. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I've learned so much from all and each one of you guys, and I really appreciate this opportunity for all of us to come together. And I think we're able to have this mature women talk, and you guys are full of wisdom. And even though I may have not dated all of these different types of guy, I was able to live vicariously through that and learn from the lessons you guys have learned. So thank you guys again. Do you guys want to give any shout outs to a particular person or social media?
Shout out to Brian for putting this all together and moderating, and to you, Wendy, for hosting. Awesome job. Thank you. Thanks for letting us share.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And I hope the audience was able to take something away from this. And please stay tuned for our next segment on female dating perspectives in the 20s, same time next week. And we're done here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.